Hello and thank you for watching Guitar 101 Rammstein. It's been almost a year and a half since my last video. Honestly, I've been busy doing some other YouTube channels I've started. There's one on fishing, one on cooking. I'm going to put the links below just because new channels really need support, and all the channels I'm doing, I'm trying to make some income to improve my videos, basically get a new camera, etc. So any some new subscribers for those channels are always appreciated. Also on the cooking channel, you're going to hear a lot of, I do all the background music, so you're going to hear a lot of my playing on that. Anyways, I'm back, and I'm going to be doing a review on a new bass I just got. This is a made in Mexico Fender Precision bass. Brand new. I played it for maybe a couple hours. I got it from my work, actually. I requested a bass so I don't have to take mine in, and just a standard 4-string with standard tuning. So they just kind of chose whatever to get. I already have a P bass, but this is a new one. Serial number is MX16, so that means it's made in Mexico and it's produced between 2016 and 2017. This was new in the box, and it's kind of a bittersweet review because P basses are great basses. Fender makes really great instruments, but over the years they kind of, I don't know, their quality control kind of sucks. It's hit and miss. So if you're ordering one online, you're really it's a hit and miss thing. If you have the luxury of going into a music store and trying them out first and picking out the one that's set up well, then you can get a really great bass that way. But either way, it's kind of annoying because you're paying, I don't know, these go for around $600, I think. If I was spending that kind of money on a guitar, I would hope it would be playable, out of the box. This had a few issues I'm going to go over, and I'm also going to show you how to fix that, how to do some general just setups on a P bass. Alright, first off, you'll see I've got like a hair tie wrapped around the strings here. That was just a quick fix because I'm going to kind of pull this loose and I'll show you what the problem is. It's all on the A string only. There's this really annoying ringing, and that's not an uncommon problem with a P bass. An easy fix is, let's see if I can angle this good, is this A string. When you put a string on, you want to cut the string a lot longer so you can do a lot more coils and force this string pressure downwards. I took the string off and restrung it to push it down more, and it helped a little bit, but it did not solve the problem. The hair tie, I'll play it again without. And now I'm going to let the hair tie back down. Solves it somewhat. It's still there a little bit. I mean, it doesn't pick up on recordings or through the amp, but it's enough to annoy me. Without the hair tie, it drives me crazy to hear that sound. Another thing I noticed was that E string sounded really dead and not punchy at all. I mean, it could be the strings, because like I said, this was sitting, I don't know for how long, in a warehouse, in a box or whatever. So it could be the strings are just old. But further look, and I actually raised this a bit. It's really hard to see on the camera, but this pickup under the A string was really low. I raised it because it was just unplayable like that to plug it in. It sounded really bad on the E string. It was way, way down, totally flat down. So it's kind of silly if you have to do this, but it shouldn't be that low. So I just took a Phillips screwdriver, and I'm going to bring it up a little bit more, actually, because it still didn't sound like I wanted to. And just do a little bit at a time. You don't have to make a huge major adjustment. If you raise it too high, you're going to get the string hitting against the pickup, and that's going to make a bad noise. Plug it in and try it until you kind of compare the strings. And wait to get that punch back. Like I said, these strings are a bit old, and I mean, that's kind of annoying too. I think Fender, if you're watching this, you owe me a set of strings, because to fix this A string problem, I'm going to have to put a new string on, and I might as well put a whole new set on. Bass strings are expensive. I have a lot of basses. I spend a lot of money on strings, so that's like the last thing I want to have to do after dumping $600 on a new guitar. Finally, last complaint is the action is ridiculously high. It's really high. It's like, I'm used to playing 5-string basses with different tuning, 8-string basses. My fingers are strong, I think. but this is hard to play. I recorded a couple samples using Logic, and I'm going to play those in a minute. This video is going to go over a few things of fixes and stuff, so down below you're going to see a menu to skip ahead if you don't want to watch some parts of it. But the action is really high. It makes you play like shit because it's a lot more work. You know, it usually is easy enough to fix. We're going to go through a few steps on that. But anyways, I still like the tag on here, and we see, you know, shows the assembly is by a Sonia, a tune test, and an inspector. And the only legible name is Sonia. For tune test, it's like a, see if you can see that, and inspector. So I think the inspector should get reprimanded at work because he did a really lousy job. But these are all things that are possible to fix. But like I said, if you're going to buy a new bass and you have luxury of going to the music store, try a few of them out because you're going to see if it was inspected by this guy, he probably did a shitty job. Other than that, you know, a P-bass, the pros of it, it sounds like a P-bass. They have a unique sound. They're really cool basses. Like I said, it's not my first one. I have one that was built in 1978. And it's American made, and that thing's awesome. It's right here. And I mean, there is a difference, even in weight. You know, the American one's a little bit heavier, and it just sounds awesome. If you want to hear this in action, I actually recorded an album last year for a band I'm working with called Behind Your Fear. I'll put a link to that down below. I use the bass on that album. It sounds great. I also you know, right when I got this, I only played this a few hours, so I just made just a quick kind of test recording, made a couple songs. I'll put some of that at the end as well so you can hear it in action. But what we're going to do is I'm going to play these clips that I recorded just before starting this video. And it's just, the first one is direct line in. I'm using a Focusrite Scarlett interface, plugged right in, no plugins, nothing on Logic Pro X. So you're going to hear the direct sound, and you're going to hear it. I notice I start on the E string. You're going to hear it's kind of dead sounding because what I was talking about with that pickup. And then there's another clip right after that, 2 short clips, where I'm using just a generic bass amp simulator on Logic Pro X. And I just picked one really quick. I didn't mess with the sound much. I used a setting called Hi-Fi DI. All right, so you'll hear kind of the difference of the direct sound out of the box and a plug-in. So that's it. Now I'm going to play you those clips, and then we're going to start off with adjusting the truss rod and probably adjusting the action too, and this pickup. So you're only going to need a few tools for this. You'll need a Phillips screwdriver. You'll need a couple Allen wrenches, one for the saddles and a larger one for the truss rod. And to adjust the truss rod, you'll need a capo, any kind of capo just to hold the first fret, and what we call a feeler gauge. Feeler gauge is a very important tool for adjusting truss rod. You have all these little pieces of metal that are measured and marked to millimeters and metric system, or vice versa. If you don't have a feeler gauge, I'm putting a link down below to Amazon where you can get one. They're not expensive, 10, 15 bucks. And that's one of the things, maybe you saw my older videos, I was complaining about how YouTube cut me off on monetization because I wasn't getting enough hours of views. They made this new policy that kind of discouraged me from making videos. So one thing I found around that is become an Amazon associate. And I'll be putting links to whatever's relevant that I can find in my videos to an Amazon link down below. Clicking on it doesn't do anything. You know, you can find the product there. But if you click on that link and you buy that, I get a percentage. Or if you click on that link and you start shopping on Amazon and buying something, I get a small percentage. So that really helps. But that's it for the beginning of this. Let's go into these sound clips and then how to fix these little problems on the bass and try to get it sounding like a proper P bass. In this video, I'm going to show you how to do a truss rod adjustment on, doing this on a made in Mexico P bass. Tools you're going to need are a capo, an Allen wrench for the truss rod, and what we call a feeler gauge. If you don't have a feeler gauge, it's very important for this. I'm going to put a link down below for where you can get one through Amazon. They cost $10-15, but they're very useful. You need it really to do a proper truss rod adjustment. Truss rod adjustments are kind of scary to do. They used to be for me anyways, because it was kind of hit and miss or experimentation, and sometimes you make it worse than it was. But if you follow this procedure, it's pretty easy. This video is going to just show the truss rod adjustment. After that, you're probably going to need, you're going to need to do a string height adjustment on the saddle, so that'll be in another clip. You'll see the link in the info box above and the description below. So the capo. First, you want to put the capo at the first fret. And when you're putting a capo, especially for basses, they probably don't use a capo very often, put it as close to that fret wire as possible. I'm not on it, I'm just right behind that fret wire. Alright? You need to do this because otherwise you need 3 hands to hold that fret, to hold this fret, and then to use the feeler gauge under the string. Alright, so we got that. Now you're going to want to push it on the fret where it meets the body. In this case, it's on a P bass, it's going to be the 16th fret. Alright, and now we take our feeler gauge. I'm using 0.15 inches, 0.015 inches or 0.38 millimeter on the feeler gauge. And we want to slide this under the string at the fret wire of the 7th fret. So somewhere like this should be right about in the middle of the neck from point A to point B where my fingers are, or the capo on the fingers are. So I go to fret 7 and I'm going to slide it under that. And what you're looking for is, does it fit under it or does it actually move the string a little bit? And this is actually correct. It's moving it just a hair. So it could use a very small adjustment. If it is moving it, what you're going to have to do is loosen the truss rod. You know, put your Allen wrench in there and loosen it. I'm happy where it's at, so I'm not going to do it. You know, counterclockwise or clockwise, it's going to tighten or loosen. Do it in small increments and remember how much you turn. So if I do like a quarter of a turn, I'm going to remember that, and then I'll check it again. You shouldn't have to turn a lot. If you're turning a lot and nothing's happening, I'd recommend taking it to a professional, because if you over tighten a truss rod or if there's something wrong with it, you can snap the truss rod and that's going to be a big problem. So you're going to adjust it until that feeler gauge is just set how you want it. You know, so it's not bumping that string up, it's not raising the string, and it goes really easily under it like this is. So this is actually out of the factory, done right. This bass, the action's really high though, so I'm guessing that's the first thing to check. You want to go in this order. Check the truss rod, then we're going to adjust the action on the bridge. Hopefully that fixes this action on the bass because it's really high, it's hard to play. Third step would be to file the nut, which I'm not going to do. I don't want to try that. I don't have the files and I won't touch that. That's something I'll take to a repair shop. Alright, so part 2, you're going to see how to adjust the bridge. One thing I forgot to mention in the previous video is you want to hold the bass in playing position when you're doing a truss rod adjustment and checking the string height. If you lay it flat, the weight of the body is going to pull the strings lower than they normally will sit holding it. So you want to hold it in playing position. All right, for this, you're going to need if you get a feeler gauge, mostly they'll come with a ruler. And that's going to be very helpful. You're going to need the feeler gauge to do the truss rod adjustment, so get one that has this. I'll put a link below where to get it. And for the E string, one of the standards is you're going to measure the E string at 4/32 on your ruler. What I'll do is at the fret that meets the body, in this case the bottom of the 16th fret, I'm going to stick my ruler there, and you won't see it on the camera, but I want to see where it's sitting, and this is it's in between 3 and 4. So if I want to set this at 4, what I'll do is take the Allen wrench that's going to fit your saddle, and adjust both of those screws. Turn them equal amounts. So I'll raise this a little bit. Let's say a quarter turn. And also I try to remember how much I'm turning, so it's easy to undo if something goes wrong. Now check it again. It's a little bit higher, but can still come up a bit more. And this is like kind of a factory setting. I'll actually keep it a bit lower than 4/32 because I like a lower action. So I just did another half turn on these. Check it, and it's close. It's where I like it, to be honest, so I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to go all the way to 4. But say we're going to 4. We're going to follow factory settings. Next is the A string. You want the A string a little bit lower, like in between 3 and 4/32. The D string, the same thing. And the G is going to be a little bit lower as well. That's going to be about 3/32. So if you want to go in that order, as far as height, you know. If you're going to do it a little bit lower, a little bit higher, you want the E string to be the highest, the 2 middle strings, A and D, to be a little bit lower, and the G finally the lowest. And that's it. Another thing you can do, what I like to do, because I like to get my action as low as possible. Once I set up the truss rod, I'm going to set it, tune it, and then check all my frets. I'm going to do that on all the strings. And then I'm going to slightly do small turns on both screws of the saddle. I'll do maybe a quarter of a turn and check it again. And I'm going to keep doing that and get it as low as possible until I run into an issue where maybe I get like a dead fret. Where I'll show you an example real quick. I'm going to, let's see, 1, 2. I'm doing 2 full turns to lower my E string. 1, 2. So that's quite a drop. And there, I'm getting some fret buzz. So what I'll do at this point is just kind of like what I should have done, actually, to be honest. Bring it up to tune, because every time you loosen this, it's going to go flat. If you tighten it, the string's going to go sharp. But keep in mind, if you go that extreme and you're in standard tuning and you decide you want to do drop D tuning, you're going to have an issue with buzzing. I'll be using this bass in mostly standard tuning, so it's not a big deal for me. And it's not a huge adjustment to make if you do want to change tuning. So I'm going to... You want to check all the frets. Here it's getting fret buzz that I don't like. So now I'm going to tighten it back up. Let's go a quarter turn on both of the bolts. Still some buzz at the 12th fret. I'll do another quarter turn, tightening it. I'm almost there, so probably another quarter turn, that's good. And that's how I try to like kind of fine tune my action to get it sitting just where I want it. I like a lower action. It makes it a lot easier to play, obviously. So that's it. And I mean, if you still have issues after that, it could be a problem in the nut, where you'd have to either get specific size files to file the nut. That's the best scenario, or if it's already filed too low, that's going to be a bigger issue. I'd recommend, if you're not used to doing that kind of work, take it to a shop, to a professional. So now the third part of the bass setup, we're going to adjust the pickup height. And as I showed earlier, I returned this back to how it was. And you see under the A string, that pickup is really, really low. It's cranked down. I could hear it right away. You're not going to hear it just playing unplugged. But one thing I did mention was that maybe the strings are old and the E string's just kind of worn more than the A string. But if you're not plugged in, you should be able to tell, you know, if one of the strings is just more worn with the factory strings that were on there. These sound okay still. So when I did plug in, I noticed the E string just lacked a lot of punch. You can probably hear that in the demo clips at the beginning of the video. And it's definitely, this pickup is way too low. Yeah, I can tell just by looking at it. So to do this, you can just kind of eyeball it and adjust till you're happy with it. If it's too high up, you're going to get some strange sounds, some artifacts of like this string when you play, especially if you're playing harder and with fingers, where it hits against the pickup and rubs against the pickup. Ideally, I want it as high as I can get it without having that issue. On your string feeler, just use the ruler or a straight metal ruler. And again, we're going to measure at 3/30 seconds. You want to hold the highest fret, push it down, and then under the E string, we're going to use the gauge. And this is closer to 2/30 seconds. I'm sorry, 4/30 seconds. So I'm going to go ahead and raise this quite a bit because I can see it's really low. And that's kind of the advantage of a split pickup. You can really fine adjust it to all the strings. And still looks a bit low to me. I'm going to bring it up as much as I can. Not as much as the screw goes, just as much as I think I can get away with before it causes any issues. Get it in the light where I can see. That looks better to me. And I'm going to check the other strings. Again, just put the ruler against the pickup, fret at the bottom fret, the highest fret, and check your gauge. This is actually, could come up a little bit here, I believe. You're going to kind of have to compensate. You're not going to get exact measures because it's, you know, the pickup's going under pretty much 2 strings each. The rest looks okay to me. I'm going to fine tune it under better light where I can see what I'm doing. And that's it. You're just trying to find it. And you're not going to really, to test it out, you got to plug into an amp. That's the only way you're going to tell what the pickup height's doing. Plug it in, play it around in all positions, and see what you're happy with. Make some adjustments, fine tune it, and then it should sound a lot better. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the setup. And then I'm going to record a clip of the bass after I kind of rework the setup, see what the improvements are. Most of the improvements you're probably not going to hear totally, but it's going to be definitely in the feel of it and how it plays. All right, so we'll get to work on that. All right, so after going through those 3 steps to fix the setup, I'm pretty happy with it. So I went ahead and recorded a quick demo track, about a minute long. I'm going to play for you now. And there's 2 versions. One is just the DI track. That's just the bass going right into my interface. It's a Focusrite Scarlett. And I didn't put any effects on it, no processing except EQ and compression. The second take, you're going to hear a more processed sound. For that, I'm actually using this the bass by 2 Notes bass preamp. This thing is awesome. I have to do another video on it to really go into it. I used kind of a more dirty sound for it. Just kind of thought it fit the mix good. Did it really quick, so it's not perfection by any means. I mixed it really fast. I barely did any mixing, to be honest. And you can hear the difference on that. So here you go. Take a listen.